Herbert Hoover, the president history forgot. When Americans think of their presidents, certain names instantly come to mind: Washington, Lincoln, Roosevelt, Kennedy. But there are others whose legacies are quieter, more complicated, and often misunderstood. One of those presidents is Herbert Hoover, the 31st President of the United States. To many, Hoover's name is almost inseparable from the Great Depression, one of the darkest economic periods in American history. But the story of Herbert Hoover is far more complex than a single moment in time. Before he became a symbol of economic failure, Hoover was widely admired as a humanitarian, a brilliant engineer, and a self-made success story. Herbert Clark Hoover was born on August 10, 1874, in the small town of West Branch, Iowa. His childhood was marked by tragedy. Hoover lost his father at the age of 6 and his mother just 4 years later. Orphaned by 11, he was sent to live with relatives, moving from Iowa to Oregon. These early experiences shaped Hoover's character, instilling in him a deep belief in self-reliance, discipline, and personal responsibility. Hoover was not born into wealth or privilege. He worked hard from an early age, both in school and in life. When Stanford University opened its doors in 1891, Hoover was part of its very first graduating class. He studied geology and engineering, fields that would define his professional life long before politics ever entered the picture. After college, Hoover became a mining engineer, working across the globe, from Australia to China to Africa. He gained a reputation as a problem solver and eventually became extremely wealthy. But perhaps more importantly, Hoover developed an international perspective and a belief that technical expertise and organization could solve even the biggest human challenges. That belief would define both his greatest achievements and his greatest failures. Before becoming president, Herbert Hoover was already a national hero. During World War I, he organized massive food relief efforts in Europe, helping feed millions of civilians caught in the chaos of war. He later served as Secretary of Commerce under Presidents Harding and Coolidge, where he promoted efficiency, cooperation between government and business, and economic modernization. By the time Hoover ran for president in 1928, the United States was experiencing economic growth, technological progress, and widespread optimism. Hoover won in a landslide, promising continued prosperity. Few could have predicted how quickly everything would change. Just months after Hoover took office, the stock market crashed in October 1929, triggering what would become the Great Depression. Banks failed, businesses collapsed, and unemployment skyrocketed. By 1932, nearly 1 in 4 Americans was out of work. Hoover believed deeply that economic recovery should come from voluntary cooperation, not direct federal intervention. He feared that too much government aid would undermine individual initiative and permanently expand federal power. Instead, he encouraged businesses to keep wages steady and urged state and local governments to take the lead in providing relief. Critics argue that Hoover's philosophy made him slow to act. While he did support some government measures, such as public works projects, like the Hoover Dam, and the creation of the Reconstruction Finance Corporation, these efforts were often seen as too little, too late. To many suffering Americans, Hoover appeared detached and ineffective. Public frustration grew, and Hoover became a symbol of the Depression itself. Shantytowns built by homeless Americans were mockingly called Hoovervilles, and empty pockets were referred to as Hoover flags. Whether fair or not, Hoover's name became associated with economic despair. One of the most damaging moments of his presidency came in 1932 with the Bonus Army. Thousands of World War I veterans marched on Washington, D.C., demanding early payment of bonuses promised to them years later. When negotiations failed, Hoover ordered the army to remove the protesters. The resulting violence shocked the nation and further destroyed Hoover's public image. In the election of 1932, Hoover faced Franklin D. Roosevelt, who promised bold action and a New Deal for the American people. Hoover lost decisively. After just one term, he left office widely blamed for the nation's suffering, despite the fact that the Depression had begun before many of his policies could take effect. Unlike many former presidents, Herbert Hoover did not fade quietly into retirement. In fact, he lived more than 30 years after leaving office, becoming one of the longest-lived former presidents in American history. Over time, Hoover's reputation slowly improved. Presidents from both parties sought his advice on government reform and foreign policy. He led major commissions under Presidents Harry Truman and Dwight D. Eisenhower, helping reorganize the federal government and improve its efficiency. Hoover also wrote extensively, producing dozens of books on history, politics, and economics. He remained firm in his belief that excessive government intervention could threaten individual freedom, a view that, decades later, would influence conservative political thought. Herbert Hoover died on October 20, 1964, at the age of 90. By then, the country had changed dramatically. The New Deal had reshaped American government. World War II had redefined America's global role, and Hoover's presidency felt like a distant memory. So why is Herbert Hoover often forgotten? Part of the answer lies in timing. Hoover was president during one of the worst economic crises in history, and he became the face of that disaster. His successor, Franklin Roosevelt, dominated the era with dramatic reforms and powerful leadership, casting a long shadow over Hoover's legacy. But history has softened its judgment. Many historians now argue that Hoover was not indifferent or cruel, but constrained by his philosophy and the political norms of his time. He was a capable administrator and humanitarian who struggled to adapt when unprecedented crisis demanded unprecedented action. Herbert Hoover's story reminds us that leadership is often judged less by intentions than by outcomes, and that even brilliant, well-meaning individuals can be overwhelmed by forces beyond their control. In remembering Hoover, we're reminded that history is rarely as simple as heroes and villains. Sometimes it's about a man who believed deeply in his principles and paid the price when the world changed faster than he could. If you would like to know more about history, subscribe to our channel, History Horizon, and give the video a like.